Commander Yarrick stood alone on the observation deck of the Imperial flagship Valiant, watching the endless stars slip past like cold distant watchers of a universe ruled by iron and fear. The galactic empire stretched its grasp across countless systems, crushing planets and lives beneath its relentless rule. Yarrick was a man many admired, decorated for his skill and loyalty, praised for his cold precision in battle. But tonight, a heavy weight pressed on his heart, unlike any mission he had faced before. A secret message from High Command had arrived. Earlier that day, sealed with the Empire's emblem and marked urgent. It was an order unlike any other, one that chilled Yarrick to the bone. The Empire wanted him to breed a slave, not for love or alliance, but for power and control. A slave named Zara, a woman not just prized for her beauty, but for rare and valuable genetic traits. She was known across the galaxy for her sharp mind and the potential to give the Empire an era, symbol to secure their hold on a future that none but the rulers dared imagine. The words echoed in Yarrick's mind, produce a legitimate heir. It sounded more like a command for ownership than anything human. As he replayed the orders, a storm of doubt and anger rose within him. This was no longer a matter of duty or loyalty. It was about the price of freedom, the meaning of honor, and the humanity he feared the Empire was crushing beneath its boots. He remembered the countless missions where he had followed orders without question, the faces of soldiers who died. Under his command, the planets reduced to silence by Imperial bombardments. But this was different. This was personal. This was about a living being forced into a fate without choice. Zara. He had never met her, but her story had spread quietly. Through the whispers of the fleet, a woman who once resisted the Empire's chains with fierce courage, whose mind was as sharp as her resolve. She was not just a prize. She was a symbol of resistance, even in captivity. Yarrick knew the Empire's leaders saw her as nothing more than a tool, a means to an end. But he could not. He wondered if Zara would trust him or if she would see him as just another face of the Empire's cruelty. The thought of what was to come made his chest tighten. How could he stand by and allow this? He paced the deck, eyes fixed on the stars, searching for answers in their cold light. The Valiant was a fortress, a symbol of the Empire's might. But within its walls, Yarrick felt a prisoner himself. The order was clear and unforgiving. Failure was not an option, yet obeying meant betraying every principle he held sacred. His mind raced with possibilities. Could he find a way to protect Zara? To give her something the Empire could never take: freedom? Or was he doomed to become a pawn in a cruel game he despised? The weight of command pressed down on him, but beneath it, a spark of rebellion began to burn quietly. He knew he had to act carefully. Any misstep would bring the wrath of the Empire upon him and Zara, and the consequences would be fatal. Yet he could not let fear silence his conscience. Outside the observation window, the stars shimmered like cold promises, indifferent to the struggles of men and women trapped beneath the Empire's shadow. Yarrick's thoughts turned to the galaxy beyond, the countless lives suffering, the oppressed, yearning for hope. He was just one man, but perhaps one man could make a difference. The night deepened, and with it, his resolve hardened. He would meet Zara. He would see for himself the woman behind the label of slave. And when he did, he would decide how far he was willing to go to protect her from the fate the Empire had chosen. The tension in the air was thick, the quiet hum of the Valiant, a constant reminder of the machine that held them all captive. The Empire's demand was clear, but Yarrick's heart whispered a different truth, one that would change everything. This was not just a mission. It was the beginning of a reckoning. And somewhere in the shadows of the vast, cold galaxy, a human spirit was about to challenge the very Empire that sought to own it. Commander. Yarrick's first encounter with Zara was nothing like he had expected. The cold steel corridors of the Valiant echoed around them as she was brought before him, not as a person, but as a possession chained and guarded, her eyes sharp and alert despite the heavy weight of her situation. She did not look broken or defeated. Instead, there was a quiet fire burning behind her gaze, a silent challenge to the Empire's cruel intentions. Yarick's heart tightened as he saw the way the guards treated her. Cold and unfeeling, as if she were an object rather than a living being with thoughts and dreams. But Yarick knew better. He stepped forward, his voice calm yet firm. And instead of ordering her around or treating her as a tool for the Empire's use, he offered respect, the kind of respect she had not seen in a long time, if ever. The surprise in her eyes was unmistakable, and for a moment the chains that bound her seemed lighter, if only in spirit. They spoke quietly in a small hidden room aboard the ship, away from prying eyes and ears. Zara's story unfolded like a fragile thread weaving through the harsh reality of the Empire's grip, captured from her homeworld, forced into servitude despite her intelligence and strength, stripped of freedom but never of hope. She spoke of a distant world where she had once dreamed of more education, friendship, and the simple joy of choice. She spoke of the endless nights spent staring at stars she could never reach, imagining a life beyond the metal walls that confined her. Yorick listened, each word fueling a fire in him that grew brighter with every breath. He could feel the injustice in her voice, the pain of stolen years, and the stubborn will to survive that refused to be crushed. As the days passed, their secret meetings became more frequent. Yarick began to quietly share with Zara knowledge. The Empire tried to keep from her technical data, star maps, navigation secrets, anything that might help her find a way out of captivity. He passed her tools hidden in plain sight, small devices that could unlock doors or scramble security codes. It was dangerous, a game played on the razor's edge, but Yarick's resolve was unshakable. He had made a promise to himself the moment. He saw her eyes not to betray her, but to give her a chance at freedom. Zara's trust in him grew cautiously. A fragile bond built on shared purpose, and the quiet rebellion simmering beneath the surface of their daily lives. Neither spoke openly of the risks, but the danger was always present, hanging over them like a storm waiting to break. They were two prisoners, one bound by chains, the other by duty, but together they dared to dream of escape. Their conversations delved deeper, revealing more than just plans and strategies. They talked about hope, about the kind of future they wanted to build if only the Empire's grasp could be broken. Zara's strength inspired Yarick, and his steady support gave her a glimpse of a world where she might be free to live, not just survive. The tension aboard the Valiant grew as rumors of unrest and rebellion circulated among the crew, but none suspected the quiet alliance forming in the shadows. Yarick and Zara moved carefully, always watching for signs of suspicion. Day was a test of their courage and wit. The ship's corridors, once symbols of oppression, became the stage for their unfolding defiance. Yarick's internal conflict deepened with each passing hour. He was still an officer of the Empire, bound by oath and duty, yet his heart beat for a cause greater than orders and obedience. He was no longer just a commander. He was a protector, a conspirator, in a plan that could cost him everything. Zara's eyes held a promise, a silent plea for a chance at life beyond chains. Yarick knew the Empire's command was merciless and absolute. Failure would mean not only the loss of his career, but possibly his life. Yet the idea of allowing Zara to become a mere pawn in the Empire's twisted game was unbearable. Each secret meeting, each whispered conversation, strengthened their resolve and built a connection that no prison bars could hold. The days turned into nights filled with careful plotting, small victories, and quiet moments of hope. Zara's mind, sharp and quick, absorbed every piece of knowledge Yarick could share, transforming fear into determination. Together they imagined a future where she would not be a slave, but a leader, a symbol of resistance against the Empire's cruelty. Suspense hung thick in the air as the moment of decision drew closer. They both knew the risks and the cost of failure, but the alternative, remaining captives in a cold, merciless system, was no longer acceptable. In the hidden corners of the Valiant, a rebellion was born, not one of weapons and violence, but of trust, courage, and the unbreakable desire for freedom. Herrick's choice was clear in his heart, though the path ahead remained shrouded in danger and uncertainty. The spark of rebellion was no longer just a thought. It was a promise set aflame in two souls determined to change their fate. Stars outside continued their silent journey through the vastness of space. Inside the flagship, A new kind of battle had begun. One fought, not with blasters, but with hope, respect, and the quiet power of a human spirit refusing to be broken. The tightening grip of the Empire around the Valiant grew more suffocating by the hour, and whispers of suspicion began to ripple through the crew like a growing storm. Yarrick and Zara both sensed at the invisible walls closing in on them. The watchful eyes of the Empire's enforcers ready to catch any sign of defiance. Time was slipping away, and the moment to act had finally arrived. Together, they moved with careful precision, their plan forged in secrecy and whispered promises of freedom. Stealing a small starship from the ship's lower docks was no simple task, but Yarrick's deep knowledge of the Valiant's layout and security systems, combined with Zara's quick thinking and fearless determination, turned the impossible into a dangerous reality. They slipped through the shadows, bypassing patrols and hacking security locks with the tools Yarrick had secretly given her. Every step was a gamble, every breath measured against the threat of discovery. When they finally reached the small vessel, a sleek, agile ship meant for short-range missions, hope surged in their veins. But they knew the real challenge was just beginning. Launching into the dark expanse of space, the stars felt both like guides and witnesses to their desperate flight. Their resources were scarce, limited to what they could quickly gather. But they had something the Empire lacked, a shared will to survive and a fierce hope for a new future. The vast, hostile void was unforgiving. Enemy patrols, alerted by the sudden disappearance of the vessel, raced through the sectors to hunt them down. Yarrick's mind raced, calculating trajectories, plotting evasive maneuvers, and using the small ship's agility to slip past enemy scanners. Zara's calm steadiness was a perfect counterbalance, her sharp eyes scanning for dangers both known and unknown. As they darted through asteroid fields that could tear the ship apart or past unstable nebulae emitting deadly radiation, every moment was filled with tension and the thrill of survival. They shared silent looks, each understanding the stakes, each drawing strength from the other's presence. The partnership they had forged in shadows grew into something unbreakable, a bond built on trust, respect, and the unspoken promise to protect one another, no matter what lay ahead. Yarrick admired Zara's resilience. Despite everything she had endured, she never lost her sharp mind or her fierce spirit. Her insights and quick decisions saved them from many close calls, proving that she was no mere captive, but a force to be reckoned with. Zara saw in Yarrick more than just a former officer of the Empire. She saw a man willing to risk everything for freedom. Someone whose courage sparked a fire she thought had long been extinguished. Their flight was a dangerous dance with death itself. Once, they barely escaped a tight patrol by using a decoy signal, fooling the enemy's sensors into following a false trail. Another time, a sudden solar flare knocked out the ship's communications, leaving them blind and isolated for hours, forcing them to rely on instinct and sheer determination. Every challenge strengthened their resolve and sharpened their skills, transforming them from fugitives into survivors. The longer they stayed free, the more the Valiant seemed a distant nightmare, replaced by the harsh but hopeful reality of their escape. The stars outside were vast and cold, but inside the ship, hope burned brightly. Yet neither Yarrick nor Zara allowed themselves to forget the price of failure. The Empire would not stop hunting them. The danger was real, and the path ahead was uncertain. For the first time, they held the reins of their own fate. Together, they navigated through the labyrinth of space, learning to move as one. Yarrick's tactical mind and Zara's unyielding courage forming a perfect harmony. They planned their next moves with care, always seeking safe havens, small rebel outposts, or uncharted worlds where the Empire's reach was weaker. Their story was no longer just about escape. It was about resistance and hope. As they flew further from the Valiant, the chains of the past began to fall away, replaced by the thrilling but dangerous promise of freedom. Their alliance, born in fear and necessity, had become a partnership forged by respect and shared dreams. The stars may have been cold and indifferent, but among them, two souls were united by a spark of rebellion that refused to be extinguished. The journey was far from over. Jarek and Zara had proven that even in the darkest corners of the galaxy, courage and trust could light a way forward. The Empire wanted to own Zara, to control her future, but together, they were rewriting the story one step, one star, one heartbeat at a time, after weeks of dangerous travel through uncharted space. Jarek and Zara finally found a remote planet, hidden beyond the usual paths of the Empire's patrols, a place where silence stretched across vast forests and quiet oceans, untouched by war and tyranny. The planet's surface was rough, but full of promise. Mountains rose like ancient guardians. Rivers wound through valleys like silver ribbons, and the air carried a freshness neither had breathed in years. They landed their small ship in a hidden valley surrounded by thick trees, far from any star charts or imperial records. Here, they decided they would build a new home. Sanctuary not just for themselves, but for anyone brave enough to escape the Empire's cruel grasp. The early days were hard, as the planet was wild, and survival meant learning to work with the land rather than against it. They built shelters from local materials, repaired their ship for emergencies, and began clearing space for others who might come. Zara's knowledge proved invaluable. Her sharp mind, once forced to serve the Empire, now focused on creating tools and defenses to protect their fragile community. She developed energy shields from scavenged technology and designed communication devices that could detect approaching threats long before they arrived. Each innovation was a step toward safety, a promise that freedom here would not be taken lightly. Word spread quietly through hidden channels, whispers reaching other slaves and refugees who dreamed of escape. One by one, they arrived, tired, frightened, but filled with hope. Each newcomer brought stories of pain and resilience. And together, they formed a community based on cooperation, respect, and the shared dream of freedom. Jarek took on the role of protector and leader, but he always listened first, knowing that survival depended on trust and unity. Their days were filled with work and learning. They planted crops, taught each other skills, and shared knowledge that had been denied to them by the Empire's oppression. The small colony began to thrive, growing not just in numbers, but in strength and spirit. The people laughed again, sang songs of distant stars, and looked to the future with a courage that only freedom could inspire. But the Empire was never far behind. Scouts and patrols still searched the outer reaches of space, hunting for any sign of the fugitives. The community prepared quietly, training in self-defense and maintaining the defenses Zara had built. Alert was met with calm readiness. Every shadow watched carefully. Despite the dangers, hope burned brighter with each passing day. Zara and Yarek's bond deepened in this new life. No longer prisoner and officer, they were partners, equals united by the same dream. Zara taught the community about science and technology, unlocking potential that the Empire had tried to keep hidden. Jarek shared his knowledge of tactics and survival, training others to protect what they had built. Together, they became the heart of a rebellion born not in violence, but in the desire to live free. The planet itself seemed to respond to their presence, its wild beauty a constant reminder of the life worth fighting for. The nights were filled with stars, and under their light, the community gathered to tell stories, to remember those lost, and to celebrate the strength that had brought them here. Yet, even in this place of peace, the threat of the Empire loomed like a dark cloud. Every decision was made with caution, every new face carefully trusted. But the colony's very existence was a message, refusal to be broken, a living rebuke. To the Empire's cruelty was proof that even in the farthest corners of the galaxy, freedom could take root and grow. Jarek and Zara looked out over their home from a hilltop one evening, the sun setting in colors they had never seen before, and felt a quiet pride in what they had built. This was more than survival. It was a new beginning. The stars that had once been symbols of isolation were now beacons of hope, and as they stood together, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, they knew that no empire could hold back the human spirit when it was fueled by hope, courage, and the simple, unyielding desire to be free. The tightening grip of the Empire around the Valiant grew more suffocating by the hour, and whispers of suspicion began to ripple through the crew like a growing storm. Yarok and Zara both sensed it, the invisible walls closing in on them. The watchful eyes of the Empire's enforcers ready to catch any sign of defiance. Time was slipping away, and the moment to act had finally arrived. Together they moved with careful precision, their plan forged in secrecy and whispered promises of freedom. Stealing a small starship from the ship's lower docks was no simple task, but Yarok's deep knowledge of the Valiant's layout and security systems, combined with Zara's quick thinking and fearless determination, turned the impossible into a dangerous reality. They slipped through the shadows, bypassing patrols and hacking security locks with the tools Yarok had secretly given her. Every step was a gamble, every breath measured against the threat of discovery. When they finally reached the small vessel, a sleek, agile ship meant for short-range missions, hope surged in their veins. But they knew the real challenge was just beginning. Launching into the dark expanse of space, the stars felt both like guides and witnesses to their desperate flight. Their resources were scarce, limited to what they could quickly gather. But they had something the Empire lacked: a shared will to survive, and a fierce hope for a new future. The vast, hostile void was unforgiving. Enemy patrols, alerted by the sudden disappearance of the vessel, raced through the sectors to hunt them down. Yarok's mind raced, calculating trajectories, plotting evasive maneuvers, and using the small ship's agility to slip past enemy scanners. Zara's calm steadiness was a perfect counterbalance, her sharp eyes scanning for dangers both known and unknown. As they darted through asteroid fields that could tear the ship apart or past unstable nebulae emitting deadly radiation, every moment was filled with tension and the thrill of survival. They shared silent looks each, understanding the stakes, each drawing strength from the other's presence. The partnership they had forged in shadows grew into something unbreakable. A bond built on trust, respect, and the unspoken promise to protect one another no matter what lay ahead. Yarok admired Zara's resilience. Despite everything she had endured, she never lost her sharp mind or her fierce spirit. Her insights and quick decisions saved them from many close calls, coding that she was no mere captive, but a force to be reckoned with. Zara saw in Yarok more than just a former officer of the Empire. She saw a man willing to risk everything for freedom. Someone whose courage sparked a fire she thought had long been extinguished. Their flight was a dangerous dance with death itself. Once, they barely escaped a tight patrol by using a decoy signal, fooling the enemy sensors into following a false trail. Another time, a sudden solar flare knocked out the ship's communications, leaving the quiet peace that Yarok, Zara, and their growing community had built on the remote planet was shattered one morning by a chilling message intercepted from Imperial channels. A fleet was coming, sent to crush their sanctuary and erase any hope that dared to grow beyond the Empire's iron grasp. The news spread quickly through the colony, sending ripples of tension and fear, but also sparking a fierce determination among the people. Yarok and Zara stood before the gathered community, their faces calm but resolute, as they explained the danger ahead. There would be no surrender. The Empire believed it could intimidate them with overwhelming firepower and cold efficiency. But they underestimated the strength of a people fighting not just for survival, but for freedom itself. Together, Yarok and Zara devised a plan that used every advantage the rugged planet and their own ingenuity could offer. The colony's terrain was transformed into a maze of hidden traps, camouflaged bunkers, and concealed communication networks, all powered by Zara's technological skills and the hard work of the colonists. Guerrilla tactics became their greatest. Weapons striking quickly from the shadows, confusing the enemy, and vanishing before a counterattack could form. The small ships salvaged from the Valiant were upgraded with stealth technology and fitted for rapid strikes, turning their disadvantage into a deadly edge. The Empire's fleet arrived with blinding speed, its massive ships blotting out the stars as they prepared to unleash destruction. But what they found was not a helpless colony, but a united force ready to fight with every ounce of courage and strength they possessed. Ambushes struck Imperial patrols as they landed. Defensive turrets hidden among the trees opened fire with precision, and the colonists, once slaves and refugees, fought as one. Yarek's experience as a commander guided their movements, anticipating the Empire's tactics and countering them with swift, unexpected maneuvers. Zara's inventions gave them the edge shields that absorbed blasts, sensors that detected enemy movements, and communication devices that kept everyone connected despite the chaos. The battles were fierce, echoing across the valleys and hills, but the spirit of the colony refused to break. Every victory, no matter how small, was a spark of hope that lit the dark sky. Among the fighters, stories of bravery grew tales of ordinary people standing firm against the might of the Empire, refusing to bow or flee. Zara and Yarek moved through the battlefields like shadows, leading their people with calm determination, their bond stronger than ever. The Empire's soldiers had been trained to obey without question, but here they faced a force fueled by choice and belief. And that made all the difference. Slowly, the tide of battle shifted. The Empire's confidence faltered as their losses mounted, and whispers of defeat began to spread through their ranks. The colony's success became more than survival. It was a symbol. A message that even the most powerful empires could be challenged by courage, compassion, and unity. When the final battle ended, the Empire's fleet retreated, battered and beaten, leaving behind a community that had defied its might and claimed its freedom. The people cheered, their voices rising in a song of victory that echoed across the wild planet and into the stars beyond. Rek and Zara stood together, watching the retreating ships with quiet pride. Their journey had been long and dangerous, but their victory was a promise to themselves, to their community, and to every soul still trapped under the Empire's shadow, that freedom was possible. The scars of battle would remain, but so would the hope that had carried them through. From the ashes of oppression, a new beginning had risen. The colony was no longer just a refuge. It was a beacon, a living example of what humanity could achieve when united by the desire to live free. As the stars shone brightly above, Yarek and Zara knew their fight was far from over. The Empire would return, and new challenges would come. But for now, their home was safe, their people strong, and their spirits unbroken. In a galaxy ruled by fear and control, they had found a way to break the chains not with weapons alone, but with the power of trust, hope, and the unyielding strength of the human heart.